and welcome to the first half of Lesson 4. This week we're beginning our conversation about major key signatures. You may remember that we've already talked a little bit about key signatures. That was in Lesson 2 when we were talking about one of the places that you might see accidentals. So as you'll recall, when there's an accidental in a key signature, that accidental applies to the whole piece. Basically, the job of the key signature is to tell us which note is do. Key signatures also only have sharps or flats, they never have both. And so, depending on which type of accidentals they use, the key signature has a different rule for how you figure out what do is. So this week we're talking about the keys that use sharps, and next week we'll talk about the keys that use flats. The rule you need to remember for sharp keys is that the last sharp in the key signature is T. So when you're looking at a key signature that includes sharps, the first step is going to be to determine which one is the last sharp. The last sharp is always the one that's the furthest over to the right. So in this case, it's this one, because it's the furthest of those three sharps to the right. And then we need to name it. So this is on the space above the top line of the treble clef, which is G. So this is G sharp. Remember that the last sharp in the key signature is T, so now we know that G sharp is T. Next, we'll want to locate the last sharp on the piano keyboard. So our last sharp is G sharp. And remember that the last sharp is T, so this key right here, G sharp, is T. And our final step is going to be to find do. So we know where T is, and we know that T to do is a half step. So we just want to find the note that's 1/2 step above T. So we're just going to count up from T 1/2 step, and we land on A. So that means that A is do. And that also means that this key, the one with 3 sharps, is A major. Let's take one more example of a major key that uses sharps just for practice. So our first step is to find the last sharp. And remember that that's the one that's furthest to the right, so that's this one. And this is E sharp. Next, we're going to find E sharp on the piano keyboard. So remember that a sharp is 1/2 step above the note. So here's E, we're going to go up a 1/2 step and we land on what looks like F but is actually E sharp. And then the final step when we're identifying those major keys is to find do. And T to do is a 1/2 step, so we need to find the note that's 1/2 step above T, or above our last sharp. So we're just going to count 1, and we land on F sharp. So this is going to be the key for F sharp major. Notice that I've put major in my name. It's really important to include that every time you identify a key signature. So always write F sharp major, not just F sharp. Yay, sharp keys! I have to tell you guys something. There actually is a key that's a beautiful key. And it's a beautiful key because it has a key signature with no sharps or flats. And that key is C major, and we love it so much. I know what you're thinking. Identifying key signatures is fun and all, but what if I want to write my own key signature? Well, I have some good news for you. That's what we're going to talk about next. Before we can talk about writing your own key signature, first we need to talk about what's called the order of sharps. Basically what this means is that sharps are always going to occur in a key signature in the exact same order. And that order is this: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and finally B sharp. So again, that's F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. Or you can just remember the phrase, fat cats go down alleys eating berries. When you're writing accidentals in a key signature, it's important to put them in the correct octave. So you always want your sharps to be in these places when you're writing on the treble clef. F sharp should go on the top line. C sharp should go on the space second to the top. G sharp should go on the space right above the top line. D sharp should go on the fourth line. A sharp should go on the second space. E sharp should go on the top space. And finally, B sharp should go right on that third line. In bass clef, your sharps should go in these places. F sharp should go on the fourth line. C sharp should go on the second space. G sharp should go on the top space. D sharp should go on the third line. A sharp should go on the bottom space. E sharp should go on the third space. And finally, B sharp should go on the second line. So armed with all of that knowledge, we can actually write a key signature. Let's use E major as our example for how we'll do this. The first step is to figure out what note is do. This should be pretty easy because, as we know, do is right there in the name of the key. In E major, do is E. From do, we need to find T. Remember that T to do is a half step, so to find T, all we need to do is go one half step down from do, which puts us on this black key, which is D sharp. So now we know that D sharp is T, which means that we also know that the last sharp in E major's key signature is D sharp. So now we need to think about our order of sharps. Fat, cats, go, down, alleys, eating, berries. We've already discovered that D is going to be the last sharp, so that means that we don't need any of the ones that come after D, but we do need to include all of the ones that come before it, which is G, C, and F. So now we're ready to write our major key signature. So we have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp is our key signature for E major. Let's take B major as another example. So first we're going to find do, and we know that do is B in B major. Then we're going to want to find T. Remember that T to do is a half step, so to find T we just need to go one half step down from do, and we land on A sharp. So now we know that A sharp is T, which means that it's also the last sharp in our key signature. So we're going to look at our order of sharps, and we know that A sharp is our last sharp, so we don't need these guys that come after it, but we do need all of the ones that come before it. F, C, G, D, and A. So we'll now write our key signature. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. And that's 5 sharps, the key signature for B major. To be continued. Dun dun dun.